It's Platt, and today we go organic. That's next to Platt's Beer of the Week. So today the particular beer we have is the fresh cut Pilsner. It comes to us from Peak Brewing. Little background into Peak Brewing. Peak Brewing is located in Portland, Maine. Maine actually has a really great craft beer scene up there, and per capita has one of the best counts of breweries, people up there. Really cool little scene, and one day when all this craziness settles, I will definitely make it up there and check it out. A little more on the background of the company. The brewery was founded in 2007 by a gentleman named John Caddo. Now, his background, or the further story of the brewery, is that John and his buddies in the 90s started homebrewing. Young guys, just for fun. And but like a lot of things, people get a little more wrapped up in the hobby. They started improving their recipes, improving their techniques, and getting more serious about the hobby. Where the big breakthrough came from was they started, instead of just getting all their ingredients from a local homebrew shop, nothing wrong with that, but they decided to kind of work outside the box a little bit, start sourcing certain ingredients locally, start sourcing organic ingredients, and they found that their beers took a giant leap forward. They just taste fresher, taste better. They really, I guess it dawned on them that they kind of had something there. And so they started taking the whole process a little more serious, to the point where it led them to eventually open the brewery in 2007. Now, when they opened the brewery, they realized they could take an even greater or more interactive relationship with the local farmers. Now they're not just hobbyists, but they're an actual business, that has purchasing power. And so they really start ramping up the relationship with those local farmers. A perfect example of this is in 2009, Peak helped local Maine farmers cultivate the first commercial crop of hops in the state since 1880. It was also an organic crop. If you think about it, especially in the world post-Prohibition, most hops were just grown in the Northwest. During Prohibition, we lost most of the local and regional breweries. We went to national breweries who could afford to buy hops from a centralized source. And so it really did kill a lot of the local hop farms, especially in those, niche regions that weren't the Midwest. And so Maine had just kind of lost its hop industry, but Peak helped bring that back and also helped bring organic hops. At the time, I believe there was only one organic hop grower in the U.S. Now there's 48, and that's great. That's a new niche market for these farmers. Also, too, again, it allows many more regional and local brewers to have access to organic hops than they would before, and even to the point now where hopefully this stuff starts working its way to the homebrew shops and the home brewers can start having access to these fresh organic ingredients that really do make a difference in the beer. Well, before we try this beer, though, let's check out the stats. All right, so I thought today I would talk about, since we were talking about organic hops earlier, I thought I'd go a little more in depth on hops. Many of you out there may be homebrewers yourself. Most likely, if you're watching this video, you're somewhat into craft beer, so you may have a little knowledge of hops. And this is not a course on hops, just a little kind of synopsis on it. If you're new to the whole beer thing, then hopefully you'll learn a little something for this. The hops that we use in beer, the little green cone, or also known as a flower. They're both the cone and flower. It's the cone and flower of a plant called Humulus lupulus. Now, the Humulus lupulus plant, hopefully I'm saying that right, is a relative of the cannabis plant. So if you've ever had a beer, especially some of these bigger IPAs, and you use the term funky or certain dankness to it, or if you brew a big IPA, again, plenty of these fresh, especially the typical Northwestern style hops, American style hops, that is why, if you're like, hey, that tastes familiar, there's something familiar to that. Yep, that is what that is. Now, hops, especially here in the U.S., really don't have a lot of other commercial uses. They're primarily used in the brewing industry, and they're used to add flavor to beer, add bitterness, help bring a little balance, and to stabilize the beer. And I want to talk about that real quick because that's kind of an underreported aspect to the hop plant. Again, people know about the hop aroma or hop flavor, the bitterness, but the stabilization part's a big deal. The hop plant has an antibacterial effect. It helps prevent the growth of microorganisms in your brew, and that's vitally important because you don't want any competition with the yeast in your brew. That's the only microorganism you want in your brew, and you want that to have no competition and to get its work done. What a lot of people may not know is that back hundreds of years ago, before modern medicine or whatever, if you had gotten a cut on your arm, nothing too bad, people would take the hop plant and rub it over that cut, and it has an antiseptic quality to it, and it would help clean the wound, prevent infection. Was just kind of a handy tool, actually. Now, how did we get to this point with hops? The hop plant was first mentioned as far as being cultivated in the year 736. That was in the Hallertau region of Germany. If you're a home brewer, or again, really hardcore beer nerd, that might sound familiar to you. Hallertau is one of the classic varieties of the hop plant. It's one of what they call the noble hops. These are the hops used in the great traditional beers of Europe, your English-style pub ales, your German Pilsners, Bocks, what have you. The classic, again, European-style beers use those noble hops. It was first mentioned the use of beer in the year 1079. Was the first written mention of that being used in beer. Now the question is, why then? At that point in time, beer had still been made for thousands of years. People had used all kinds of different herbs and spices to flavor bitter beer, again, kind of bring a little balance to it. How did we get to the hop plant being chosen? Well, at the time, people were using, especially in Europe, and this kind of, again, from the European, American perspective, Europe, I think we'd safely say was most influential continent on brewing, especially most influential on American brewing. At the time, they were using something called gruit. Gruit was kind of a combination of different herbs and flowers, generally dandelion, marigold, burdock root, other herbs and spices were used. And that's what people were using to make beer. Well, like any good government officials, we need tax revenue, and we need to tax something. And so it was chosen that they would tax the gruit. At the time, there really wasn't a lot. There was a few something that you would call a pub or an inn. There wasn't a lot of commercial breweries per se. Most people just brewed for themselves. Maybe the monasteries would brew for the people. But generally, there's no commercial brewery, so you really weren't able to tax the beer. The grain that was used to make the beer, well, they used that grain for bread, everything else. And if you taxed that, you would have everybody mad. Where if you just taxed the gruit, that was only made for the people that actually you're only really taxing those sinners that made the beer and drank the beer. And at the time, with religious fervor and stuff like that, not everybody was drinking, so you weren't going to make everybody mad if you taxed the gruit. But like all good bootleggers, moonshiners, and outlaws that produce their own at home, people then, all right, we're going to change to something else, and that's where the hop plant came in. Now, eventually, some jurisdictions started taxing the hop plant. People went back to gruit. There's a little back and forth. But once people started using the hop plant, they realized, hey, we've got something here. You can ask the bird. He gets it. That they had something there. So they went ahead and stuck with the hop plant ever since. And that's how we got here today. Well, enough about the hop plant. Let's try this beer. Boy, nice light golden color. Classic Pilsner. Plenty of effervescence. I get a lot of bubbles. Got a little thicker than a finger head. Woo! That is a nice hop crispness. A lot of people out there may watch this will hear the term Pilsner and think Miller Lite. That's technically a Pilsner. Don't get Miller Lite in your brain. The hoppiness is way more aggressive just on the nose, I can tell. All right, let's give her a try. Oh, that is nice. Yeah, a little more hop aggressive than the American twist on a Pilsner. You can find some Pilsners out there that are a little, that are getting a little more hop aggressive. but just nice light body, very drinkable. A hop taste, has a medium plus finish to it just because of the hops. The body's a lighter body. Really nice, really fresh, refreshing beer. You know, I don't know if the term fresh cut was meant to infer like a lawnmower type beer, what have you, but this would definitely fit into that. One of the things I talk about in some of the videos is this a beer that you can get your Miller Lite friends, Bud Light friends, wherever to move to? This one's a maybe. Bird doesn't like it. All right, sorry about that. The bird was fired up. He lost his bet on the Knights Golden Knights on the other night. Who knew? Anyway, this beer, like I said, we're talking about whether or not this beer would be a beer that you can get your Coors Light, Miller Lite, Bud Light friends to drink. Body-wise, yes. The hop might be a little aggressive for them, but if you have a more open-minded friend, this would be a decent beer to try because, again, the body, the color, the effervescent is similar to those American lagers. It's going to be the hops. It's a little more aggressive. But definitely something to work check out. But again, you know, there's kind of a freshness to this beer that is really cool, and I'm going to contribute it to the organic ingredients. I don't drink a ton of organic beers, in full disclosure, but I have drank some, and again, there's a certain freshness to it that's tough to beat. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. And if you have a beer you want me to try, please leave it in the comment section. Well, until next time, bottoms up.